jika anda boleh berbahasa Inggeris, anda lebih bijak daripada mereka yang tidak boleh berbahasa Inggeris. Penggunaan bahasa, penguasaan bahasa mana-mana pun tidaklah satu indikasi yang menunjukkan tahap intelijen.
I think it's easier for our kids to acquire English compared to BM, given the exposure. I think go with what our kid is most comfortable with.
As usual, as parents, you think, immerse them in the environment, they will get it. But no, it became a bit of a challenge that
Hai, salam sejahtera. Selamat datang ke episod ke-55 Kita Family Podcast. Di podcast ini, kami akan membincangkan perihal yang berkaitan dengan makna serta kepentingan hidup bermasyarakat, menghargai keunikan serta kepelbagaian sesama kita dan meraihkan masyarakat yang berbilang agama, kaum, kepercayaan, rupa dan juga keupayaan. Kita menghargai hidup secara inklusif yang mengambil kira keperluan segenap lapisan masyarakat, terutama bagi mereka yang kurang atau berkelainan upaya. Hai, nama saya Desiree dan bersama-sama saya di studio Anit.
hello.
Dan di Kota Kinabalu, Sabah, Didi.
Hai, Assalamualaikum.
Hari ini Nori dengan kakak SK tidak dapat bersama-sama kami, tetapi mereka kirim salam dan akan join lah dalam episod-episod yang akan datang. So, apakah topik kita pada hari ini? As I always say, semua topik kita menarik. This one in particular, saya rasa mungkin ramai ibu bapa yang mungkin anaknya pergi ke sekolah kebangsaan atau sekolah mana-mana lah. Mungkin pernah terdengar or have someone tegur, whether is in I would like to think niat mereka baik lah. Kenapa anak puan atau anak encik tak boleh cakap bahasa Melayu? Kenapa selalu berbahasa Inggeris? And also, you know, when our children, our autistic children speak English, a lot of them seem to have American accents.
Or British.
Kan?
Yep.
Pernah tak dengar Didi? Of course, Didi pernah dengar. She has 2 girls.
Who both sound different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So takkan...
Nothing like me at all.
Yes, and nobody would think they are sisters because they sound so different. Macam satu lahir negara lain daripada yang lain.
Dan betul ke belajar bercakap di rumah bersama-sama dengan Didi? Ya, so but anyway, jokes aside, memang ini juga menjadi satu topik yang sering dibincangkan oleh ibu bapa, sometimes even guru-guru, right? So maybe let's talk about it first. Let's break it down. Kenapa, why English? Mengapa is it that it's easier for them to learn the language? Maybe we can ask our TESOL graduate. Jangan lupa ya, Didi kita ni sebenarnya graduate dalam bidang TESOL. So maybe can you share a bit, Didi, on this?
Okay, bahasa Inggeris, structure dia berbeza dengan bahasa Melayu dan sebutan dia, grammar. So ada yang beranggapan yang bahasa Inggeris lebih mudah untuk dipelajari kerana dia macam sebab untuk anak-anak daripada lahir hingga boleh bercakap dalam apa-apa bahasa sekalipun, mereka tidak belajar dalam secara formal. Dia tak ada buku latihan, dia tidak diperkenalkan dengan bagaimana struktur bahasa itu, betul tak? Macam kita belajar kan daripada kita kecil, mungkin di rumah belum pernah berbahasa Inggeris ataupun tak berapa, and then bila mula masuk sekolah tadika umur 6 tahun, 7 tahun di sekolah darjah 1, baru belajar bahasa Inggeris tu macam mana. Barulah I, am, he, is, she, is, kan macam tu, all the grammar. Tapi bila kita bercakap tentang bahasa yang digunakan untuk bertutur, selalunya kalau kita cakap tentang bahasa pertama, first language, bahasa yang kita paling mahir, sama ada bahasa Melayu atau bahasa Inggeris, selalunya adalah native language ataupun ada yang panggil mother tongue. Jadi ikut bangsa lah. Kalau orang Melayu, native language dia bahasa Melayu lah kan. Orang Cina mungkin Cantonese ataupun Mandarin. And then macam Anit dengan Desiree, apa native language you all?
Bagi saya Punjabi. Sebab bila saya mula berbahasa di rumah, saya expose kepada 3 bahasa. So mendiang ibu saya selalu cakap bila saya pergi ke hospital masa adik lahir kan, saya cakap pada semua that adik saya minum susu dan makan kikan. So and I repeated the same thing in Punjabi and in English. Sebab ada jiran, so dengan jiran cakap bahasa Melayu, kat rumah dengan nenek cakap bahasa Punjabi, dan with my parents mostly English dan ada juga Punjabi. So it was I grew up so multiracial that I just feel that today taklah semuhibah seperti dahulu.
Tapi ada macam Desri pun mesti Oh, okay.
Ada
Desri lagi banyak bahasa kan?
In my case, ibu dan bapa berbangsa lain. So both of them have different mother tongues, right? So ironically, those were not my first languages. So my father Punjabi, tetapi tidak pernah bercakap bahasa Punjabi to any of us at home. Sebab we grew up also not very close, tak rapat sangat lah dengan sebelah ayah saya. My mum side, the native language actually is Kristang, the Portuguese Melaka. So I did have quite a bit of exposure to that because of my cousins, my aunties, and itulah bahasa secret kita lah. Bila keluar tak nak orang faham apa yang kita bercakap kan. So I did have quite a bit of exposure to Kristang language, but my main language was English at home. So maksudnya bila pergi ke sekolah memang susah sebab saya tak belajar bahasa Melayu di rumah. Dan saya pergi ke kindergarten pun secara part time. I was a real troublesome child lah. Nak pergi sekolah ni memang susah. Nangis. Kesian my mum. I love you mum. Thank you for being so patient. But yeah, so maksudnya bila pergi ke Darjah 1 memang tak boleh berbahasa Melayu langsung. So I gave a lot of trouble. So the language that I naturally acquired was English. BM tu memang susah. Saya terpaksa lah I push myself to the limit to learn it. Sampai boleh fasih lah SPM dapat A. Tapi bahasa Melayu tak susah sangat kan?
Bahasa Melayu tak susah. Tapi kan it shows that kita belajar bahasa di awal kehidupan kita melalui persekitaran. Bahasa apa yang digunakan di sekeliling kita. Tengok macam Desri cakap lah, bila di rumah tidak selalu menggunakan bahasa Melayu, jadi susah kan? Susah sampailah betul-betul belajar dari secara formal. Jadi bila kita cakap tentang mereka yang autistik, cara mereka belajar bukannya mereka tidak dapat bahasa itu daripada persekitaran, tapi this is what I believe, selain daripada teori-teori yang ada sama ada pembelajaran bahasa itu secara natural, kita dah ada inbuilt the knowledge of the structure of the language, sebenarnya dah ada dalam diri kita, sampailah kita menerima input-input bahasa daripada persekitaran kita. Tapi kalau autistik ni kan, mereka lebih mudah untuk connect dengan gadget, lebih mudah connect bila tengok TV, tengok YouTube, dan all these resources kan, YouTube selalunya dia punya sumber dalam bahasa Inggeris. Dan ada satu yang saya pernah belajar, seorang clinical psychologist berkongsi bahawa kanak-kanak di Australia juga menggunakan aksen British. Memang mereka berbahasa Inggeris, tapi aksen dia bukan local accent di Australia, sebab mereka dapat daripada apa yang mereka tonton. Sama juga di Malaysia.
Seperti Thomas the Tank Engine ke Peppa Pig ke.
Yeah. And lagi satu, ramai kanak-kanak di Indonesia sekarang bercakap bahasa Melayu dengan aksen Malaysia sebab mereka menonton Upin dan Ipin.
Interesting.
Jadi kan ada kadang-kadang kita dengar juga ada anak-anak di Malaysia yang bercakap berbunyi macam Indonesian sebab pembantu rumah dari Indonesia. So jadi kita belajar bahasa, cara kita bertutur sangat-sangat dipengaruhi oleh apa yang terdedah kepada kita. Jadi anak-anak autistik ni mereka memang lebih mudah untuk addicted dengan gadget. Mereka mendapat rangsangan yang lebih daripada gadget sebab bila tengok YouTube tu kan dia lebih warna-warni, lebih cepat, dan mereka pula hyper focus. Jadi bila fokus kepada YouTube dibanding dengan fokus kepada ibu bapa, fokus dengan ibu bapa ni kan mereka ada masalah untuk communicate. Selalu bila kita bercakap tentang communication dengan parents ni jenis yang suka bertanya. Dia tidak banyak memberi input. Sedangkan bila YouTube tu kan dia just memberi input. Dia just one way. Jadi dia terima saja kan. Sedangkan kita kan selalu tanya, what is your name? What is this? All these questions, not much of input. Banyak kita test. We like to test our children. So, jadi oleh kerana itu, jika anak-anak terdedah dengan gadget, dia memang lebih incline lah, lebih minat, lebih mudah, lebih mahir untuk berbahasa Inggeris sejak daripada kecil. Dan ini adalah satu fenomena yang sangat lazimlah di kalangan anak-anak autistik di Malaysia.
Interesting. So, kalau nak lihatkan pada teori, of course kita takkan cover teori in detail lah. Language acquisition, there are a few ways lah. So, one is from your environment, what you're exposed to. Certain theories say that if you are exposed to good grammar from a very young age, the grammar is acquired. Kan? Dan ada juga yang berkata even we learn to imitation and repetition.
Yes.
Kan? So with katakan YouTube videos kan, is all repetition. Then eventually our kids imitate. Tapi cara diorang imitate pun mungkin tak sama seperti kanak-kanak lain. Because imitation also is a very difficult construct for them. So if I can bandingkan dengan perkembangan anak saya sendiri, Hans walaupun tak boleh bertutur, tak boleh bercakap, tetapi dia belajar membaca dari YouTube. From the words, right? Because like what Didi said, is one way and is less pressure for autistic kids yang memang social communication ni sangat mencabar. So bila ada sesuatu that is one way information, they absorb it better lah, kan? Okay, jom kita tanya Anik pula. Boleh tak share sedikit tentang maybe your journey with Nirav in terms of the languages that you chose to expose him to first and then later?
Okay, so I think Nirav, like you say, was exposed to a lot of TV. So dia memang suka sangat Thomas the Tank Engine sampai jadi obsession lah. Tapi, it was such a typically British with the fat controller and the thin controller and Thomas the Tank Engine sampai marah pun sangat proper kan. So his acquisition of language was very British. And then when he started with a speech therapist, she also spoke very properly because she was trained in Britain. So hi Auntie Diani, if you still remember Nirav, thank you. And so he was very precise and he spoke very precisely. So when he had a problem with speech delay, one of the things that the speech therapist also said was perhaps stick to one language so that they master it a bit more. So, which made sense because you're trying to teach them a skill. So obviously when in a neurodivergent kid, benda ni tak natural kan? Kalau kanak-kanak lain walaupun katalah mereka ada disleksia tapi dia orang boleh bertutur bahasa yang berlainan. So tak apalah. Tapi kalau anak yang susah nak bertutur tu, sometimes it's a step by step. Kan kita kata break it down step by step. When you step by step it becomes a skill that you have to focus on one thing at a time. So then we made a conscious decision to focus on English because that was something that we all spoke. Tapi yang menjadi kelakar tu, pembantu rumah pun belajar cakap bahasa Inggeris sebab Nirav. So Nirav taught everybody how to speak English. And when he went to school, actually in kindergarten, he started learning suku kata, which became a little bit of a problem because, okay, yang suku kata yang ada dua tu, sabata, T, tu, those sort of things, that was fine. Tapi bila ada like 3 huruf, then he got very confused because bila dia mula membaca tu, dia membaca menggunakan phonics. And phonics in English has got a different way of pronouncing it. Like in bahasa RAM is ram. In English it's ram. So that became a source of confusion. Although he could read in bahasa, his understanding was just not there. So, and as usual, as parents, you think, immerse them in the environment, they will get it. But no, it became a bit of a challenge that after Standard 3, when bahasa in the national system became far too challenging, that's when we made a decision to shift him into the international stream. So that bahasa was not as challenging, whereas his siblings were able to cope with the more challenging bahasa. Sebab sekarang ni bahasa menjadi technical tau. I mean, I'm just speaking for myself kan. Bila I pergi sekolah dulu, taklah se-technical yang sekarang. Sebab, macam Didi kata tu, I am, he is, she is was something we learned as a part of grammar. And now in bahasa as well, you start with kata nama kata nama khas, by diphthong, and things like that, which I never learned when I was in school. So it's become far more technical today for the kids.
The bar is slightly higher actually. So kalau nak compare, bila saya masuk darjah 1, we were still learning how to read.
Yeah.
Tapi sekarang the tanggapan bila seseorang tu masuk ke darjah 1 sudah boleh mengira dan membaca and can even do some form of addition and multiplication. Right?
Not multiplication.
Sorry, addition and subtraction. Sorry.
Boleh
so
mengira.
You need to have that membaca dan mengira lah is already there. But when I went to Standard 1, that was not a prerequisite. Ramai je yang belum boleh membaca. So the bar has been raised lah of sorts.
Yep. So basically like bila dah masuk sekolah, it's no longer acquisition kan, because you really have to learn the language formally. So that's the thing. You nak belajar bahasa secara formal, if you have the basic, that is not gonna be so difficult, Yep. But if your basic is not there, sebab apa yang you acquire, yang you belajar secara semula jadi sebelum you masuk sekolah tu adalah bahasa yang sama dengan apa yang you akan belajar formally, then senang lah. Contoh sebab macam kan anak-anak kita yang memang suka bahasa Inggeris, fasih berbahasa Inggeris, bila dia masuk darjah 1, darjah 2, mereka naturally akan jadi pelajar terbaik dalam bahasa Inggeris. Sebab itu yang mereka mahir. Itu kan. Jadi dia satu bukan mereka memilih. It's not a decision by the parents or by the child themselves, the children themselves. Saya nak mahir dalam bahasa Inggeris, saya nak mahir dalam bahasa Melayu atau tidak. Cumanya sejak sejak lebih dari 10 tahun yang lalu, dalam komuniti Melayu sendiri, bila ada satu trend tadika swasta yang menyediakan kurikulum dalam bahasa Inggeris. Sebab bagi mereka, anak-anak akan dapat belajar bahasa Melayu di sekolah nanti. Mereka akan catch up. Jadi di tadika tu, daripada umur 4 tahun hingga 6 tahun tu, lebihkan bahasa Inggeris. Dan ibu bapa pula bila thinking that okay, bila anak saya lahir, nanti anak saya bila berumur 4 tahun, saya nak masukkan ke tadika sekian-sekian yang mempunyai yang menggunakan bahasa pengantar bahasa Inggeris. Mereka ada subjek bahasa Melayu, tapi the whole curriculum selain dari bahasa Melayu tu berbahasa Inggeris lah. Jadi naturally kan komuniti Melayu dan keluarga-keluarga Melayu yang muda ni, mereka menggunakan bahasa Inggeris dengan bayi mereka dengan harapan anak mereka akan dapat berbahasa Inggeris lebih baik daripada mereka sendiri. Sebab of course it's an advantage lah bila kita fasih berbahasa Inggeris. Dan ada satu tanggapan yang sebenarnya tidak benar. Yang ni saya belajarlah ketika saya belajar jurusan TESOL, yang merasakan jika anda boleh berbahasa Inggeris, anda lebih bijak daripada mereka yang tidak boleh berbahasa Inggeris. Penggunaan bahasa, penguasaan bahasa mana-mana pun tidaklah satu indikasi yang menunjukkan tahap intelijen, tahap kebijaksanaan, tahap kebijaksanaan seseorang itu. You cannot say that, oh, she can speak English, she must be smarter. It's just that di Malaysia ni, bila kita boleh berbahasa Inggeris, kita punya lebih banyak peluang lah. Dan apabila kita belajar pun lebih mudah lah, ada kan resources, buku teks, internet, mostly in English. So of course akan lebih ni lah. Jadi sejak itu memang naturally parents suka untuk expose anak-anak mereka dengan bahasa Inggeris. Tapi bila macam kami membuat begitu sebelum anak didiagnose kan, dia diagnose dengan autism, yelah, hello, TESOL graduate kan, lepas tu suri rumah sepenuh masa jaga anak. Of course, siapa lagi nak diajar kan? Okay lah, these two kids lah. So okay, kita cakap bahasa Inggeris, tapi of course dengan campuran bahasa Melayu here and there, of course lah. Tapi mostly in English. And kita dedahkan dengan all these videos, how to read lah, apalah in English. Tapi kerana mereka lebih mudah kan menyerap apa yang kita tunjukkan, dengan memang dengan sedia ada di rumah pun saya menggunakan bahasa Inggeris dengan mereka. Mereka menguasai bahasa Inggeris. Ini yang memang saya TESOL graduate yang memang menggunakan bahasa Inggeris di rumah, dan anak saya boleh cakap bahasa Inggeris lah. Tapi sebenarnya ramai juga banyak kes di mana dalam keluarga yang tidak menggunakan bahasa Inggeris langsung. Jadi anak-anak ni memang purely mendapat bahasa Inggeris daripada social media, daripada YouTube, daripada gadget, TV, dan mereka bercakap bertutur bahasa Inggeris, dan memang bukan sesuatu yang dipelajari daripada persekitaran ataupun dengan keluarga sendiri. Ini yang orang kata macam memang ajar ke bahasa Inggeris? Tak ajar pun. Macam in my case ajarlah.
Tapi Didi, kan kita kan suka drama Korea. Sikit-sikit kita pun boleh. Sebab I tak belajar Korea tau. And then a lot of kids, I mean I know this because when I was in school, ramai juga kawan I yang boleh nyanyi lagu Hindi. Sebab mereka tengok filem Hindi kan. And then because dulu 6 o'clock I tengok cerita Hong Kong, so sikit-sikit Cantonese pun boleh lah faham. Tak boleh cakap tu tak apa, tapi boleh faham lah. So it's just exposure.
Yes, tapi mereka memang lebih minat kan, dia lebih transfix, lebih fokus, hyper focus in them when they focus in the YouTube videos dengan Upin, bukan Upin Ipin lah, kalau cakap English tu mungkin lah tengok Peppa Pig ke, tengok Blue's Clues, yang tu yang mereka tengok, tu yang mereka dapat bahasa tu. Dan macam Anik cakap lah, my two kids dua-dua cakap bahasa Inggeris but sound like nothing like me. Antara dua-dua
nothing like each other.
Yeah, but of course they faham like each other, but they don't sound the same at all.
They have their own personality lah tu.
They do.
Kan? So they have developed their own persona and their
accent.
own personality and their own accent. That's unique to them.
Yes, which sound different from their parents.
Yeah, and I think that's really special. Kan? Yeah. Really special. So I think let's take a quick break. Dan bila kita kembali, kita akan berbincang sedikit tentang what is it like in like, we've got some examples from PPKI, going to school, tanggapan and all that. So we'll be back after a short break. Hai, selamat kembali ke episod ke-55 Kita Family Podcast. Hari ni Didi, Anik dan saya berbincang tentang bahasa. Ya, so bahasa Inggeris dan bahasa Melayu, dan mengapa kecenderungan yang lebih tinggi dalam kalangan mereka yang autistik untuk berbahasa Inggeris lebih daripada bahasa Melayu, especially our children kan, based on their exposure to the language, whether it's through media or at home. So we've covered quite a few things from from our TESOL graduate Didi on language acquisition, the environment, the exposure dan sebagainya. So sekarang mari kita explore beberapa contoh-contoh. I know Didi memang ada banyak cerita lah, based on her two girls yang memang berlainan juga their personality dan persona. So maybe Didi boleh tak share beberapa contoh and in terms of their communication, both your girls, and what implications it has had for them in school, semasa di sekolah kebangsaan dan juga sekarang di sekolah yang lain. Sekarang kan bukan sekolah kebangsaan. So over to you, Didi.
Okay, sebelum we go into schools, let me share some anecdotes. So bila mereka lebih cenderung kepada bahasa Inggeris dengan all these videos kan yang daripada overseas. Mereka punya jati diri pun bukan berkurangan, berubah. Sebab yalah kan kita kan cakap orang Melayu cakap Melayu. Bila kita cakap Melayu, kita yalah dengan kita punya perayaan, kita punya sambutan, everything kan. Bila mereka menonton all these rancangan daripada barat kan, lebihlah kepada Christmas lah, apalah, hinggalah pada satu masa anak saya, masa tu Amy, dia berumur 7 tahun. Dia merajuk lah dengan parents dia kan, merajuk nangis-nangis, dia kata, send me back to my real family. I'm like, real family? What do you mean? Kata, yeah, my real family in London. I'm like, what?
Oh, wow.
London? I'm like, why do you think that you are from London? Tu dia cakap lah, because I speak English. Oh my. And memanglah mak dia punya English tak bunyi London langsung kan. Oh my.
How old was she when she said that?
She was 7.
Interesting.
No, it really sounds like something a neurodivergent would say, because kali pertama dengan nenek mereka, dua anak saya termasuk Nirav naik kereta api, they thought they were going to go onto one of the Thomas the Tank Engine once, and they like trains, and mula-mula dia memang ingat dia akan pergi to like the same station. So macam dia rasa excited sangat, like walking up and down sampai sampai the grandmother pun tak tahu nak buat apa dengan mereka, sebab it's like their dream come true, because they have been watching that and and Bossy Boilers and things like that. So I think they live in that world that they see on screen kan.
Yeah. Oh my.
Tapi Amy dengan Ofia ada tak reaction dengan Upin Ipin bila tengok?
They love Upin Ipin, they love Oma dan Hana. Diorang suka because interestingly, although they speak so much in English, they look at Malay as something exotic tau. So I did bawa pergi movie, tengok movie Melayu kan, dan kelakar lah, dia kata, it's too fast, I cannot read the subtitle. I'm like, which subtitle are you reading? Oh, both English and Malay. I'm like, read salah satu dah lah, you don't have to read both. but they like it, they like it. Just that communication wise, they prefer to speak in English. Tapi I would never not use BM, because I don't want them to feel that BM is such foreign to them. And of course, bila balik kampung, bila jumpa cousin apa semua, some of them speak English to them, some of them just speak Malay, and I have to remind them, especially Afia, like cakap dengan dia, you can speak in English because everybody can understand English. You don't think that whoever speak Malay don't understand English. They can. And then you're talking about budak-budak punya bahasa. It's not that sophisticated kan. So sometimes diorang rasa uncomfortable, but I just remind them, no, it's okay, just use whatever language that you are comfortable with, and you boleh faham mereka yang cakap bahasa Melayu. Actually mereka pun boleh faham whenever you speak in English. Not to worry about that. So other implication kan, dari segi bila to make friends lah, kalau pergi daripada tadika kan, walaupun tadika set up yang semua everything, all the language, everything instruction in English, but other kids are not fluent in English yet. So memang ada susah sikit lah that to make friends, and of course with their social challenges as well kan, communication challenges, so memang susah. Tapi bila dah masuk sekolah kebangsaan, di mana mereka mula masuk sekolah kebangsaan aliran perdana, everybody understands that they are autistic, they are more inclined to speak in English, and we can see that other kids also, they brush up their English so that they can communicate with them. So that is a positive impact lah. Tapi in a way that they did not so much improve their language in the SK. I think because of it's not that easy kan, sebab they have these learning challenges as well. The setup, the environment. We are talking about big classes and then long hours in school. And BM is not just the BM as a subject, but BM as a language for other subjects as well. So it was a very big challenge to them that like Anit, we also decided to take them out of the national curriculum when they were in standard 4 and standard 2. But having said that, I managed to post a questions just now on social media to get responses kan, tanya experience, and many parents actually managed to keep their kids in the national curriculum, but of course with lots of challenges. And some of the kids actually, they improve. I mean, the immersion concept, the immersion kan, immerse them, and the kids improve their language. In Bahasa Melayu other than English lah. So we can't really say for sure that, if you're autistic and you started with being very good in one language, particularly English, you would not survive in the system at all. Some kids can. Some kids even as they grow up, they become more fluent in Malay, and they are not that into English language anymore. Not that they are not fluent. They still can, of course. Whenever they start to speak English, you're like wondering, are you sure you are from Malaysia? Because I think that we got, like this, macam contoh kan, masa kecil-kecil, masa the kids were kecil-kecil, ada orang yang asking behind my back, not asking directly to me lah, macam, the two girls, sebab dah nampak kan, I'm the mother, tanya dekat belakang, ayah dia Mak Saleh ke? Sebab cakap pasal tu. And then ada juga macam bila kita pergi kedai perabot ke apa kan, ada this one sales assistant tanya, sebab nak beli perabot kan, baru balik ke dari overseas? I feel like we've never been to overseas yet by that time, so we were just like living in Selayang, never been out. So those are the remarks that we got lah. So it's not easy.
I understand that, Didi, because I remember having this conversation because we were trying to teach the kids' identity as well. And when we were trying to teach them that they were Punjabi, so Nirav's word was he couldn't say it fully, and he kept saying, "You Jabi?" Yes. Papa Jabi? Yes. But I'm English.
See?
So I think because they didn't identify with the language, whereas I know when I was growing up, the identity was very strongly inculcated in me. So memang I tak pernah sesat lah. I tahu I anak Malaysia, tapi keturunan saya memang dah tahulah sebab you speak the language. Tapi untuk mereka tu lain sikit sekarang. And so that was a challenge. But we consciously, because he was going for therapy, kept like the Punjabi language and the Hindi language away, thinking that it could come later, and it did. It did. And the other thing which I think Desiree also pointed out was in Punjabi and Hindi, there is a masculine, feminine, and neutral gender.
Yes.
So there is an additional element in that language that if it doesn't come naturally to you, learning it is slightly more difficult because like the chair is feminine, the table is masculine, but it's if you start speaking it, it will come automatically, but otherwise it's about thinking on the gender element as well.
Yeah.
And that is a language or linguistic skill or higher linguistic skill, which is a challenge for some neurodivergents.
Yeah. So in languages like this, it's easier to acquire it rather than to learn it. It's not impossible to learn.
Yes.
You can still learn it, but it's easier if you acquire it, being in the correct surrounding, the setting, and then, hearing it from birth. Actually, so that's how you acquire language.
But TV is a great teacher sebab ramai yang boleh je. At least say a few words.
My Hindi understanding extends to Hindi movies only. Yes, that's where I learned Hindi. I do not speak Punjabi.
So
Desiree,
it became very, very second nature. But after a while, we realized that even now, because of his memory and his hyperfocus, he's able to recite prayers in all languages. So whether it's a Buddhist mantra or the Hindu Sanskrit prayers or the Sikh prayers, it's because he's exposed to everything. He's able to do it.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Didi, you were saying something tadi?
I think let's clarify, kita cuba terangkan apa beza acquiring and learning the language. So acquiring is where you get the language, kita mendapat kemahiran bahasa tu secara semula jadi tanpa kita secara sedar mahu belajar sesuatu. Kita macam mana ya? Macam bukan menyerap. Kemahiran tu datang dengan semula jadi lah.
That means you are exposed to it in your natural environment, so you acquire it. So I think one of the examples is language acquisition. Sebenarnya baru terbaca buku lah tadi kan. Silap-silap before this. Actually, you can start acquiring language from the mother's womb. So based on what the mother is speaking, the language, the acquisition starts from there. That means you're exposed, your exposure to it. Whereas learning it is like, for example, macam dalam kes Desiree, tidak belajar bahasa Melayu di rumah, pergi ke sekolah baru mula belajar. So I had to learn it. It wasn't so much acquired as it was a learned language for me.
Okay, so Desiree, I need to ask you this. So daripada membelajar bahasa Melayu, so I know we all membelajar. So sometimes cikgu bahasa Melayu pun kata yang bukan fasih bahasa Melayu lebih cepat tangkap proper grammar in bahasa. Okay, sebab kita belajar, kita bukan immersed in that language, because kat rumah ada different ways of saying things, right? And kalau you kat Kelantan tu logat Kelantan, kat Kedah logat Kedah, kat Johor logat Johor. So you have many different dialects of the same language. But how did you go from learning the language to now being able to even speak Bahasa Pasar?
I think Bahasa Pasar, looking at it, is quite easy because of exposure to it. Kan? So I went to Sekolah Kebangsaan and Sekolah Menengah Kebangsaan. I grew up in Negeri Sembilan, a small town called Seremban, which is a bandaraya now. Not so small anymore.
It's a city.
Yeah, it's a city. So most of my friends, I would say 90 to 95% of the school of Malay ethnicity. So semua berbahasa Melayu. Walaupun Cina, India, we speak dan boleh berbahasa Inggeris, but we speak in Malay to each other in school. That was the main medium of communication when I went to school in the 90s. Compared to now, I think it's different lah. Sekiranya pergi, I think, ke Sekolah Kebangsaan sekarang, you will see a bit more a bit more of them speaking in English to each other rather than back in the 90s. I think most of us communicated in Bahasa Melayu if you went to a Kebangsaan school. So that's how I managed to acquire the Bahasa Pasar side of it. As for the academic side of it, I was told to baca Utusan Malaysia.
Oh yes.
So I would buy one newspaper
Dewan Pelajar dan Dewan Siswazah.
Yes.
Yeah. Semua menjadi resepi untuk berjaya dalam kemahiran bahasa Melayu.
So I thank Kuntum and also Utusan for my kefasihan bahasa Melayu.
So if we want to give any neurodivergent parent a tip, what would it be?
I think now we are going to our views, kan? Our views on what we think about this whole English versus BM. It's not even English versus BM lah. It's the fact that I think it's easier for our kids to acquire English compared to BM, given the exposure. I think go with what our kid is most comfortable with.
Okay. Kan? So katalah any parent dia tengah nak cari sekolah. Macam, Didi and I, our experience was we both tried national school, aliran perdana, and then we, after a certain level, memang anak tu bila tak boleh cope, kita ada option lah, so kita menggunakan option tu. Tapi kepada mereka yang pergi PPKI tu macam mana?
Okay, so interestingly, hari ni saya contact dengan rakan yang where I did my masters together with this lady. She's from Melaka. Dia pengajar kelas pemulihan. And also has a lot of contacts dengan guru PPKI. So what they do dari segi pengajaran lah. So each student dalam kelas PPKI atau kelas pemulihan, they have this RPI, rancangan rancangan pengajaran individu, which is IEP, Individualized Education Plan. Right? So all of their material semua dalam bahasa Melayu. Tetapi cikgu-cikgu ni dah biasa because they see a lot of children coming in who are more exposed to English and more comfortable to communicate in English. So I think this is salah satu reasonable accommodation that is made by the cikgu-cikgu in school. They help them to translate lah when they are younger, and then they even for those who are non-verbal, they make little cue cards for them so that they can communicate, and eventually they help them learn bahasa Melayu as well. And
would it be because most early intervention programs are designed in English? Ya, adakah itu menjadi satu reason that these kids are more comfortable in English? Because let's say your kid is diagnosed to be neurodivergent, and then the next thing is therapy, whether it's speech or it is occupational therapy, and some form of, like for Didi when they went to Permata Kurnia, what was the main language that was used? Adakah itu menjadi salah satu alasan kenapa anak-anak ni lebih suka berfasih dalam bahasa Inggeris?
Even di Permata Kurnia, sebab fokus target mereka adalah untuk anak-anak ini pergi ke sekolah kebangsaan. Jadi mereka expose everything in Malay and then with English as a subject. They tried very, very much to make the kids rasa selesa dan cuba untuk improve their BM, definitely. Dan kita perlu menerima hakikat di mana sistem di Malaysia ni kebanyakan masih lagi menggunakan bahasa Melayu lah. Jadi jika kita tiada pilihan, maksudnya tidak mampu untuk memilih option di mana pengajaran semua dalam bahasa Inggeris, especially di private institution lah. Jadi perlu untuk kita menggalakkan anak-anak kita at least sekurang-kurangnya jika tidak mahir berbahasa Melayu, untuk merasa selesa dengan bahasa Melayu. Sebab even in my case pun ada masanya anak saya marah bila saya memberi arahan dalam bahasa Melayu. Dia tidak selesa dengan bahasa Melayu. Tapi kalau kita boleh menambahkan keselesaan, jadi mereka lebih reseptif, mereka lebih terbuka, mereka lebih boleh menerima kan, boleh menerima. Jadi mula dengan simple instruction, mereka boleh terima dalam bahasa Melayu, dan kemudian dengan aktiviti-aktiviti berkumpulan dalam bahasa Melayu. Kita mengharapkan immersion tu sendiri membantulah untuk anak-anak ini improve dalam bahasa Melayu. Dan memang ramai juga ibu bapa yang berkongsi pengalaman di mana anak-anak mereka bila dah sampai ke tahun 2, tahun 3, anak-anak mereka sendiri memang boleh bercakap bahasa Melayu. It's something yang itulah, no matter how much your child tak suka bahasa Melayu ataupun lebih cenderung kepada bahasa Inggeris sahaja, kita tidak boleh untuk menidakkan kepentingan mereka perlu faham bahasa Melayu sebab kita berada di Malaysia. Cumanya saya juga mengharapkan masyarakat dan juga ahli keluarga, terutamanya extended families, untuk faham bahawa bahasa Inggeris adalah bahasa kedua di Malaysia. Dia bukan bahasa asing. Jadi untuk anak-anak ini menggunakan bahasa Inggeris dan diperli ataupun kita nak buat mereka rasa tidak selesa kerana mereka memilih untuk berbahasa Inggeris adalah satu yang tidak adil, sebab mereka bukan menggunakan bahasa asing. Mereka menggunakan bahasa Inggeris yang setiap kita yang berada di dalam sistem pendidikan negara, SK, SMK ni, belajar bahasa Inggeris secara formal selama 11 tahun sekurang-kurangnya. Jadi not fair, sebab kita, itulah saya cakap, anak-anak saya bila bercakap bahasa Inggeris pun kita tidak sepanjang hari saya menggunakan bahasa Inggeris dengan mereka, dan bila saya berbahasa Melayu dengan mereka, ada ketikanya saya akan minta mereka untuk balas dalam bahasa Melayu apabila saya nampak mereka dalam keadaan selesa lah. Mereka macam, oh okay, kalau dalam mood tak baik tu dah jawab bahasa Inggeris tu, okay, terima je lah kan respon, sebab kita dah dapat respon yang kita perlukan. Tapi kalau nampak dia happy-happy, okay, kita insist lah buat tak faham ke ataupun dalam keadaan gurau kan, nak dapatkan respon dalam bahasa Melayu. Sebab tak boleh. Dia jati diri itu memang berkait dengan bahasa. It's okay if you're not good in Malay. Me as a Malay, it's okay you're not good in Malay language, but you need to understand. You need to be able to communicate with other people when they are not good in English, because you also not good in Malay. So orang lain mungkin akan cuba faham juga you bercakap dalam bahasa Inggeris and orang tu bercakap dalam bahasa Melayu. So it's give and take lah. You cannot like macam insist one way only, because kita kan masyarakat yang berbilang bangsa and then bahasa pun pelbagai. Cuma harap masyarakat lebih terbuka dan tidak sinis lah dengan mereka yang lebih cenderung berbahasa Inggeris, sama ada mereka autistik atau tidak. Let's try to be more inclusive. And janganlah ada lagi, kan ni dah dekat-dekat nak raya ni, ada yang macam nak perli-perli parents yang cakap English dengan anak-anak macam Ryan, don't run. So no need to perli-perli like that lah. I mean, like I said, English is a second language.
Well said, Didi. Very well said.
Yes, especially coming from a TESOL graduate. So we know that in the Malaysian school system, it is as important to have ability to communicate in more than one language. And I think that's what makes Malaysia very unique.
Yes.
And usually you have a third language too. So, it becomes very, very much a norm that we are at least bilingual in Malaysia, at least.
At least.
Yeah. So if a neurodivergent child is monolingual, as Didi said, tak payahlah cakap dia ni speaking, dia tak tahu berbahasa, so tak payah. So that I think is a good message, kan?
It's definitely a good message. And also, I think I want to give a special shout out to all those parents who have children who are non-speaking. Hans is non-speaking because of his apraxia, and I can confidently say he understands English and BM. Although we don't speak BM per se at home, but we are also a pretty rojak family. So things like makan, mandi, tandas, he knows. And also because, like you mentioned, EIP centers, yes, right? While the medium is in English, coincidentally, the centers that we sent him to were mainly a lot of guru-guru Melayu. Kawan-kawan semua Melayu. So the teachers would use English and BM interchangeably with all the children including Hans. So memang Hans boleh faham actually bahasa Melayu. And it came to one point that I think, so my mom still speaks to me at home in Kristang. And so she would assume that, so if she, for example, we went through a phase where Hans suka sangat ikut grandmother dia naik ke atas. So she would start telling me in Kristang that, okay, I'm going to go upstairs. And it came to a point where the minute she said that, he went and stood by the stairs. He understood because he's exposed to it, kan? So don't underestimate our kids yang non-speaking. Mereka sebenarnya faham. And I think, speaking to them in multiple languages often will also increase their understanding of that language.
And their confidence, and their confidence too. So I think for me, because I notice a lot of the EIP programs memang focus on English even when giving instructions, whether to swing, whether to jump, when it comes to even OT and obviously speech therapy. And tadika yang exposed to both languages, okay. But generally, I have noticed with neurodivergent kids, memang sukar nak dapat admission kepada tadika yang dikelolakan oleh kerajaan. So you have those tadika yang attached to a sekolah kebangsaan yang anak-anak boleh masuk tadika itu bila berumur 6 tahun yang mereka turn 6, and then with the hope that they will go to the same sekolah rendah lah lepas tu. Tapi those tadika are not able to cope with neurodivergent or OKU kids. So memang kalau anak-anak OKU ataupun anak-anak neurodivergent tak pernah masuk ke sekolah menggunakan that route. Usually kalau ada EIP center ke ataupun tadika swasta yang either tying up with the PDK ataupun the EIP center. Sebab ada terapi-terapi yang berkaitan. So I think that is one reason why they also tend to be a little bit more focused. Sebab kita punya focus is not so much untuk mereka. Well, I'm speaking from a parent myself. It was not so academic. Whereas I know of some neurotypical kids, parents mereka dah academic. Oh, daripada 2 tahun dah flashcards. dah bawa counter, dah cuba kira. And then every day sit there. 2 plus 2, macam mana nak kira? So, that sort of academic foundation memang untuk parent yang ada anak neurodivergent tu memang taklah menjadi satu keutamaan. So that probably also contributes to it, because for us it's like, as long as you can sit down, do your work, listen to instructions,
simple tasks, self-care, these are the priorities usually when you enroll in an EIP.
Yes,
absolutely.
Focus can be a bit different, and that's why language sort of takes a back seat initially. But do they catch up?
Watch future episodes for us to discuss that more in detail.
Yes.
Then I would say, yeah, for sure they catch up, you know,
definitely.
because even if you look at research and science, certain countries in the world, they utamakan masa untuk bermain. So play, the formative years focuses on play up to the age of 10. And I can't remember from where this research says age of 11 onwards, once you start them off an academic, like a pure academic based track, within 5 to 6 years they can complete high school, because the brain has already had enough playtime, they've got all their sensory input, everything settled, then the brain is ready to learn, and they learn a lot faster. Any final words, concluding words from Didi before we end?
Well, itulah dah nak raya ni. Tak kisahlah kalau anak saudara autistik ke, neurotypical ke, kalau ada guna bahasa Inggeris tu, kita raikan je lah. Tak kisahlah. Because, like I said, it's a second language, not a foreign language. Kalau foreign language kan kita rasa, cute-nya. So, English pun cute juga kan. So, yeah, be open about it, and yeah, why not?
Well said, Didi. Anin, any final words?
I would like to urge those who are in the media and who are in filmmaking to come up with more resources, because I think other than Upin Ipin, which is a pretty recent addition, maybe the last 16, 17 years, before Upin and Ipin, we didn't have many animation series in Bahasa Melayu. And since it has become the trend for children untuk belajar guna TV, guna animation, jika ada new production yang memang akan membantu semua orang, terutamanya anak-anak yang neurodivergent, sebab mereka bolehlah mendapat latihan bagaimana nak masuk sekolah, bagaimana nak bergurau, semua daripada TV dan program-program sebegini. So kalau ada orang yang berniat untuk menjalankan program-program macam ini, memang dialu-alukan. Please do so. We will just add into the fabric of society. And you know how you have Mickey Mouse, you have Donald Duck, and then you have Paw Patrol, Bugs Bunny.
Paw Patrol is the newer ones, yes.
Yes, you have all these different different ways of communicating in English. Maybe if we can have more ways of communicating in Bahasa Malaysia, it will be enriching. Yes.
Anit, you lupa. Malaysian cartoon, Didi and Friends.
Yes,
oh my God,
of course. Didi and Friends. At one point, Hans' favorite version of Lompat Si Katak Lompat was the Didi and Friends one. Yes. Yeah, so well said, Anit. We definitely need more content in Bahasa Melayu, and I guess my message would be that media and TV and gadgets is not the enemy here when it comes to learning language. I think, yes, we want to limit screen time. Janganlah sampai pagi, sampai malam, sampai tidur dengan the gadget. Of course, limit it, tapi don't to a point where it impedes the language acquisition. So ada je kebaikan gadgets and YouTube and all these videos. I would say from personal experience, I curate every single thing that my son watches, whether it's YouTube or downloaded from other sources, so much so that now he knows to find it himself.
So actually, that's really interesting, Desiree, because it just occurred to me that bila kita travel kan, kita nampak tau ada program-program yang are dubbed in bahasa Indonesia, bahasa Thailand, bahasa Thai, for the local consumption. So maybe if we don't have as much creative content yet in bahasa Melayu, there can be certain dubbings which then can be used by speech therapists as well as parents.
For example, I know Baby Shark in English, Japanese, Mandarin, and Spanish, thanks to Hans. Yeah. So dubbing is also an option. And I think neurodivergent adults will be very good at doing it also. Yep, absolutely.
Yep. They are very interested to become voice actor and actress kan. Kita dah kenal, anak-anak kita memang minat. So they can do that.
Minat. Ya. Mungkin menjadi satu kerjaya untuk mereka.
Voice over talents. Sedia ada. Sila contact kita Family Podcast for their rate cards. Okay, so I think we had a very, very interesting episode kan. Banyaklah kita discuss pasal the different nuances when it comes to English and BM, language acquisition. So we hope you enjoyed this episode. So episod penuh kami ada di Spotify dan juga di YouTube, dan kami juga ada di laman sosial TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Please like, follow, share and subscribe, and as usual, please let us know what you think. Drop us messages in the comments or direct messages for any other topics you would like us to discuss. So with that, thank you very much from Kita Family Podcast episode 55. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.